And we're live. Coach Derek Larkin, how are you?
Doing great, man. How are you, Brandon?
I'm doing just fine. Thanks for being on the podcast Seize Your Mind, the soccer podcast about soccer, mental toughness, and life. Our guest today, Derek Larkin, is currently the head coach at Rogers State University for the men's program. He's been there for 13 seasons, and he just won the conference championship in 2019 for the Hillcats for the first time in the program's history.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
He also coached at Bacone. He played college ball at Missouri Valley College and coached. He also coached at Catoosa High School from 99 to 2002. He compiled 6 district championships at Catoosa and was honored as head coach of the Oklahoma All-State team in 2002. Tell me about your club coaching. Where are you doing now?
Man, I've been coaching club nearly 25 years. I currently coach for OFC out of Tulsa, OFC Energy East. I coach 2005 boys, which are 8th and 9th graders. I also coach the seniors, which they just finished up. My son was on that team. So, I've been doing it a long time, and I'm coaching 2 or 3 teams right now. And, of course, we're obviously with everything going on, we've taken a little hiatus and giving everyone a break right now, which is probably needed. But I think they're all probably getting pretty antsy to get back out at it again, you know?
I'm sure. So let's take you back to the beginning. Let's start from the beginning. What got you interested?
And I'm old. I don't know if I can remember that far back.
What got you started into soccer? Back then, it wasn't the most popular sport, I'm sure. So it's kind of going against the grain to get into soccer back then.
Yeah, it's pretty unique because in the sense that, we didn't have the MLS. We didn't even have access to the English Premier League and things like that. So there wasn't much going on. But that said, Tulsa, at that time when I was young, we had the original Tulsa Roughnecks. And, with unbelievable players, they won a soccer bowl. You had players like Victor Moreland, Steve Earle, Charlie Mitchell was around. All these guys that when I was young, I had someone to look up to and big-time players. And so we were pretty fortunate to have that in a small city like Tulsa. Not small, but relatively speaking, compared to the major metropolitan areas. So to have that was pretty influential for me growing up. So we were around it all the time. I had friends that dad was part owner of the Roughnecks or owner of the Roughnecks, and we grew up playing soccer together. But there was a lady named Kathy Shannon. Kathy Pierce was her maiden name, was a dear friend of mine. And she was her and my sister were good friends, and they were the only 2 female players on a boys roster because there were not female teams back then. And she was a little bit older and babysitted me, and she basically is the one that introduced me to soccer when I was 4 or 5 years old. So having people like that were so instrumental in kind of getting me excited about it, and then having the Roughnecks, all of that was really kind of the driving force in playing. So we were very fortunate. I went to school with some of the Roughnecks kids at that time. So we were just around it a lot, and it was a great influence on me, that's for sure.
Very cool, very cool. So you got pretty lucky there then, and it's kind of a very unique situation, as you're saying.
Yeah.
How old were you when you went to your first Roughnecks game, give or take?
Oh, my gosh. I don't know. I want to say, what was it, around 78, 79? I think they were around then. I can't remember the years they started. It's been so long ago. And I may be off for a couple of years. I just remember, unheard of back then, getting crowds of 15, 20,000 people when the Cosmos came to town. And, I remember sitting in they call it the Pepper Patch back then, the one end zone of Skelly Stadium, the original Skelly Stadium back when it was the old AstroTurf. And, of course, during the summer, we went to the Mid-America Soccer Camp there at University of Tulsa, where we got to be around some of the Roughnecks. And so, yeah, it was pretty cool growing up around that.
So then did you play for clubs before high school? Or?
Yeah, it was unique back then because the club scene wasn't what it is today. Back then, you played for your area. So I played for a team, a competitive team out of Jenks competitive team out of Broken Arrow, and another one called the South Tulsa Blizzard. And I think it was Steve Earle that brought, with the Roughnecks at the time, his kids were playing, brought those three entities together and had a tryout and brought the best players from those three areas and basically formed what was one of the first competitive teams, I think, in Tulsa in the Premier League. And so a lot of that was just new and happening and developing. And I was not quite good enough to make that team. Some of my teammates did. And I ended up on another team called Red Star and played for a guy by the name of Milan Dobodan, who played, I think, had a stint with the Yugoslavian national team. So we had some, a small community, and we still had some great coaching, professional coaching back then. So we were pretty fortunate. Yeah. Milan also was the owner or manager of an indoor facility back then, and we played there. Our club team competed there, Red Star. And so, I played club all the way through. High school was a little bit different. I played at G's, but I wasn't the most studious person, so I missed out on a couple of state championship teams that my friends got to play on. And then from there, out of high school, I had all the answers. I was out with a job. I wasn't going to go to college. I knew everything back then, just like every 18, 19-year-old does. And I got picked up to play on the Tulsa Renegades for one season, which was kind of I don't know what you would call it back then, a glorified men's team or semi-pro team, as they called themselves, or whatever we were, playing indoor. And it was just a really by chance type of thing. There was a college recruiter from Columbia College watching one of my teammates. He happened to play that night and asked if I'd be interested to go to college. So I didn't go to college till I was 20 years old. And I was taking some classes at TCC and got recruited by Columbia, went up for a visit. 2 days later, somebody told me about Missouri Valley College. Knew nothing about it, NAI school. A couple of my friends were going to school there, and I decided to give them a phone call, and I met Carl Hutter, and the rest was history. I hit it off with Carl, and to this day, Carl, he's the head coach at Lindenwood University in St. Louis, and he and I are dear friends and talk weekly still today. Anyway, he recruited me there, and I played 4 years there at Missouri Valley, and he went on to Lindenwood, and just timing of everything, the day I graduated, they offered me a coaching job there at Missouri Valley, and I became the head men and women's coach at 25. And that's how I started my coaching career after playing.
Did you had a plan to get into coaching, or was it just they planned it for you?
As much as I love soccer and love sports and athletics, I was really into biology and science. That's what my degree is in biology. And I was looking at pre-med, and it's just funny things. I look at it, God has a plan, and man, he did for me, and it wasn't the direction I was going. I had applied to some grad schools and didn't get in, and just things kind of happened. And the next thing you know, they said, would you be interested in sticking around? We'll help scholarship your teaching certification if you want to do that while you're coaching. And I said, yeah, why not? And so I stuck around 1 year as an assistant and ran the junior varsity program there at Missouri Valley. And then sure enough, the next year the coach moved on and they hired me as the head coach. And I've never looked back. I've been coaching for 25 years now, and it's crazy how things happen for a reason, at right place, right time. And I was very, very lucky. My wife and I met in college, and she was with me the whole time. So it just really all worked out. I coached there for a couple of years after I graduated college and played 4 years there. We won a couple of conference championships while I was at Missouri Valley, and had a great time playing, and met a lot of great people, and then jumped into the coaching aspect of it.
What was the biggest difference between playing and coaching for you?
Oh man, I mean, you just want to get out there and play. There's only so much you can do. And even to this day, I kind of live vicariously through the players. I absolutely love, and we talk about it all the time still today, about soccer moments, creating soccer moments. And you've been around the locker room, and you know what I'm talking about. Those moments that you work so hard for to achieve, winning the championships and scoring that great goal or helping one of your teammates do that. And as a coach, you live for those type of moments too, but it's never quite the same as being a player and being out there on the field and being in the locker room with the guys. You know what I mean? So I don't know that I've ever fully adjusted to it. aspect. But man, what I wouldn't give to be able to get out there and run around a little bit more like I used to. You know?
It's the next best thing.
Yeah, it's the closest you can get. Not good enough to play at the professional level, so I better get into coaching, you know?
Did you try to go pro?
No, you know, there comes a point, I think, in every athlete's life, you gotta be realistic about the level that you're at. And I was a you know, NAIA college player, but when it came, you know, there wasn't many options. The MLS was just getting started. I had some people ask me to try out for some indoor semi-pro leagues, and at that time I was 25, and you know, you passed your prime and weren't good enough in the first place. You know what I mean? But yeah, there was part of me that wanted to go kind of chase that, but I knew deep down I wasn't at the level I needed to be, and man, it was time to start life, you know, and get a job. Wanted to get married and start a family and all those kind of things. So yeah, there was a few opportunities, but nothing that really would have.
So how'd you go from the college you're at to Rogers State?
Again, you know, things happen for a reason. I'm from Tulsa, and I had been away for about 8 years with college and coaching, and my first child was on the way. My wife, Christy, and I were expecting our first, and I called my dad, and we thought about moving home. And man, all of a sudden, a Catoosa high school job opened up, and I thought really hard about, you know, leaving the college level and going back to high school. But it really came down to being around my family and being closer to her family and just putting our life together. You know what I mean? It wasn't about me chasing a coaching career. I mean, a coaching career. So a guy by the name of Daryl Gortney, who was the superintendent at Catoosa, offered me a job there, and I went in and coached the girls and the boys for a couple of years, and it worked out great. It was fantastic. Loved it. We won a lot of games there, and I coached a lot of great players that went on to play in college, and I still talk to today. So I love my experience with all the people I worked with there. But then from there, a new startup NAIA program at Bacone College, and the athletic director phoned me out of the blue. David Ross is a fantastic guy, and said, "Would you be interested?" Well, it allowed me to keep staying where I'm at in Tulsa, and I commuted to Muskogee to coach at Bacone. I thought, well, best of both worlds. I don't have to leave my family, and I can get back into the college game. So I took that job and went there, and it was great. It really was. But the commute started to wear on us a little bit. My wife was actually teaching at Bacone at the time, and I know this is a lot of information, but then I found out that the Bishop Kelly job was opening up, and it literally was a mile from where I was living, you know, and we thought about opportunities for my kids, private school down the road, you know, and our child was on the way, and it just made sense. So I took the Bishop Kelly job, and what a great place, man. I met some of the greatest people there. We won 2 state championships back to back there. So a lot of great soccer moments as we're talking about. You know, we won a lot of games at Catoosa. The women won a conference championship at Bacone. The men did very well there as well. And then we went on to Bishop Kelly, won a couple of state championships there. And while I was there, there was a lot of talk about Rogers State starting up athletics. And man, my parents lived right near the campus. My aunt and uncle worked at Rogers State. I knew Rogers State inside and out. You know, I've kind of grown up around it. And so, man, when I started hearing that, I started doing my research and started calling some people and finding out more and more about what's going on. And, you know, I don't know that I was necessarily the best soccer coach for the job at the time, but it seemed to be a good fit. They needed somebody that could come in and get things started and recruit a lot of kids. And I was involved in Tulsa club scene, high school scene, college scene already. So I had a lot of contacts to be able to get us started right away. So when they offered me the job, I jumped all over it, and I jumped in as both the men and women's coach. They hired me in, I think, January. And I hated leaving Bishop Kelly because what a great place. But this just seemed to be the right fit. And they needed me to start a program by August, both men and women, starting in January. And 7
months, 8 months.
Man, monumental task, starting from scratch. I mean, Brandon, I can't tell you, back then it was an old football field and a track around the field, and they had electric wires hanging over the field, you know, of the old light posts. And I had to go in and say, hey, man, you can't. play soccer. Well, why not? They didn't understand, so there was a big learning curve both for the university and for me. And I hired Sean Slater, who's a local, legend of a player, been around forever. We grew up together, and he was in the club scene. And man, he was absolutely instrumental in helping me recruit kids. And we just dove in, man. We just dove in, and I think we brought in 60, 70 kids, by fall. And I think the women went to the regional finals the first year and finished runner up. So we came in and made a splash and put us on the map. I mean, we were, man, back then the school was really humming and was on everybody's mind, and we were winning, and basketball was getting ready to start. It was a really exciting time to see things transform and get going. So it's a long process, a long road, like you were talking about. Jumped around to a few places and then found my home here at Rogers State, and never looked back. It's been great.
One thing you mentioned was you said you still stay in touch with some people that you coached, Catoosa or whatever. That's one thing I've noticed. Yeah. One thing I've noticed about you is like you do stay in touch. Like you create a pathway that you come through and just leave a wake of great people Forrest Gump scene where he's just running and then he's got this whole family behind him. Like that's one thing that always impressed me was how much you still care about people that you aren't coaching right now that you coached 5 years ago.
Well, I don't know if I had anything to do with it, but I tell you what, it is very gratifying and a thankless profession when you get an opportunity to run into people that you were involved in their lives in some way, shape, or form and see them. They've taken that next step. You know what I mean? Whether it be a job, marriage, whatever it is. And, that's just cool to watch them grow through all that and hope that you had something to do with it somewhere along the lines. And there's such a greater picture, a greater purpose than winning games and all that kind of stuff. It's about the relationships that you build. And trust me, I don't always get it right. And I've made a lot of mistakes in my years, and hopefully that I've learned along the way and always trying to improve and do things differently. You try things when you have these people around you and you don't always get it right. God knows, especially when I was first starting out, man, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. Mm-hmm. Coach says they do is lying because you're just trying to figure it out. But you hope that you build relationships that are long lasting. You really do. Whether I got it right or wrong, I care deeply about the kids that I coach, the young men and women, and I care about their success and what they're doing. And I think if you try to put them first, that all else falls into place. You know what I mean? And like I said, I don't get it right. You can't always get it right, but you do the best you can, and you put both feet forward, and you just lead with your heart, and hopefully that's, you're going to see some success from that. And that would be, I guess that would be my biggest, message or thought moving forward is as long as you're trying to do the right thing and do right by the players, then I don't think you can go wrong. You know what I mean? Because you're doing the best you can. And that's kind of been my philosophy all along.
Speaking of doing the best for the players, I'm sure this last season, you had how many people on your roster?
36.
36. How do you juggle that? How do you try to give everyone as much attention as they need? How do you manage that many people? And what advice would you give to someone else who's trying to?
Man, you can't. You just can't be everything to everyone. So I had a dear player of mine named Griffin Kane that played for me at Bishop Kelly. Won me a couple of state championships there, I think, one or two. And then came and played for me at Rogers State. And it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to shorten it up. He said to me one time, because I like feedback from players, good and bad. Like I said, you're not always going to get it right. And you take the negative stuff that they tell you that they wish you'd have done better, and you try to learn from that. And you take the positive stuff and try to build on that. He said to me one time, he said, Coach, I think you need to do a better job of dealing with your fringe player. And what he meant by that was, coaches always are going to focus on the guys, the starters, the all conference players, your all Americans, And you lose sight sometimes of those players that are working just as hard, sacrificing just as much, you know what I mean, giving their heart and soul to the program, and they don't get to reap the benefits or seek those moments. And so as a coach over the years, I've lost sight of that from time to time, and it was nice to hear that from him. So my advice to the players is, you know what, that 36th player is just as important as that number one player. And they may not think that I believe that sometimes, and I don't always show that, but it sure is in the back of my mind and in my heart that they're just as important, because at the end of the day, they're not going pro. They're not, you know what I mean? They're all going to go start their lives just the same and look back on this, hopefully favorable in what you've provided for them. So yeah, with 36 guys, it was really, really tough. It really was. And I'll tell you the other thing, trying to do right by those guys. And when you can't be everything to everyone, try to surround yourself with great people. So we have established a leadership program within our team, where we have 5 leaders along with our captains, and they have groups that they lead so that they can be more hands-on with the players, more one-on-one when I can't be. On top of that, assistant coaches and bringing people around. You know, your father has been instrumental in our program and our team pastor and been a spiritual leader for us. Brandon, you've come on and helped us with the mental side, along with just building great relationships with our players. People like you, and I've learned over the years, it's not all about me. You're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. So I need good leaders on my from my players. I need good leadership from them. And then I need great coaches around me that can bridge that gap of the areas that I fall short in. You know what I mean? And so for younger coaches to, you know, our egos sometimes can get in the way, and we think we can be all everything. And the reality is you can't. You just can't. Even with smaller rosters, you can't. You're going to fall short. So bringing the right people in and around you is going to be instrumental to your success. And the sooner that younger coaches grasp that, man, the more successful they're going to be down the road. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. I know that's kind of a long way to get to an answer, but
no, the longer the better.
Yeah, hopefully that's decent insight. You know, like I said, I don't get it all right, but hopefully learn from mistakes, you know, that I've made over the years.
Yeah. And I think one thing to add to that is there's a lot of good people out there that are willing to help you out for free because they love what
100%.
they do.
Yeah, you know, people are willing to invest their time because they care about the kids. And the sooner that a coach can kind of drop that, you know, has to be in control. And I am, you know, ask my wife, I'm a bit of a control freak, man, you know, and part of that is because early on in my career, it was just me. You know, I was coaching 50, 60 kids, and you just said, it's got to be my way or the highway type thing. You know what I mean? And man, over the years, I've hopefully changed for the better and realized that you're right, man. There are some fantastic people out there. If you will just let them come be a part of it, they can do great things and help you, because again, it's not about me. It's about the kids and how we can help them. So I've really, over the last 5 to 10 years, taken that approach of just building a culture with people, great people, and not just you, Brandon, or people that are directly involved, but even those fringe people, you know, the administrators around our campus and our athletic director, and bringing them in and letting them see a part of it and getting to know our players. And as a result, you know, our players are getting opportunities to do internships and things and meeting people and building that network. You know what I mean? So, man, I guess maybe just learning from mistakes and getting older, I'm really a lot more open to bringing more and more people into our program. In fact, today we did a little Zoom meeting with our team just to see how everybody's getting along. And they couldn't make it today, but I called some friends of the program that have been around and former coaches and said, hey, man, would you be willing to come in and say hello? Because I think the kids would just love to see those guys, and maybe start bringing some alumni into our conversation and fold, just because we want to build that network and that family. You know what I mean?
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Because it really
it
really helps the guys who are there now to like make it tangible to people that went through what I'm going through now. It's been worth it because look where they are now. Yeah.
100%. I mean, 100%. And some of my former players have become assistant coaches and are now off head coaches. And I've got former players that are coaching all over the place, and not just coaching, but man, family and kids and careers, great careers. And it's, yeah, you're right. To see something down the road that's worth fighting for and worth working towards can be really invaluable. And the thing about it that I've learned is not every player is going to connect with me as head coach. It's just not going to happen. There's going to be players that don't enjoy playing for me, don't like me. Our personalities clash. You can't be all everything. But if I can keep getting people, good people around our kids, man, hopefully they're going to connect in some way, some level that allows, because God knows when I was at that age, I needed that. And that's what my philosophy has been. Carl Hutter, along with a lot of other people, was instrumental. He was the coach at Missouri Valley, and our relationship, you know, at the time when I was playing for him, God, there were days when I couldn't stand him. You know what I mean? He's run up and down the field and do crazy things, and I didn't understand it at the time. And I look back now on what he did for me, the chance and opportunity he gave me. And thank God I opened my eyes, my ears, and my heart to him to allow him to mentor me. You know what I mean? Because he's been one of those, along with a dear friend named Reeb Kepner, who has since passed. Guys like that were just instrumental, you know? And so I've taken that and said, you know what? Let's put people in front of our guys and see if they can connect on some way, shape, or form. Guys like you that are, whether you know it or not, are making such a huge difference in the lives of our young men and where they're going to go and help mold them. So, yeah, we're just going to keep doing the same. Just keep trying to get people around our guys and see if we can help them out, you know?
Yeah, and I think I remember at one point you saying something along the lines of, this is about building relationships and championships are just a byproduct.
Well, my memory's slipping me. I may or may have not. And if you remember that, I love it, but you're not wrong. I mean, I think obviously, you know, this year in particular, and we've been close so many times, so many factors have to go into winning. Obviously, you got to have talent, right? I mean, you don't have talent, you've got to have some other intangibles, and team chemistry and relationships and culture and all those things are so huge. And I know it's cliche because every coach says those things, but you can't put a value on that. You know what I mean? And all we're trying to do is create that type of culture. Every coach is, that has that winning mentality. And there's so many things, and it's ever changing because, I mean, look at what we're dealing with right now across the world. You know what I mean? And when we come out of this, and we're going to be stronger for it. But how we go about things now compared to how we're going to go about things in another year, and what our values are, and what we deem important to us, and what drives us, what motivates us, is going to be. So, yeah, I think building strong relationships, developing culture, all those things are probably the biggest elements in my mind for building a championship type team, you know. And it definitely played part in what we did this year. It wasn't anything I did other than try to bring the right players together. But I think bringing in some of the aspects that you brought in, the mental training, how to focus in on what's important, how to set goals and the things that you put forth. Having people like your father and Keith and what he has brought to this program to build this relationship, and having 36 guys and having them all buy into what we're doing, that's hard to do because there's a lot of kids that we're not playing and probably weren't very happy about it. You know what I mean? But hopefully they believed in what we were doing, and they supported the players that were on the field, and they supported the culture and the cause. And they believed in Roger State and what our program has done in the past, and building on that tradition. And when you get guys all rowing in the same direction, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And I think for the first time, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you're around those guys probably closer than I am, it was something tangible. Once we finally won, they kind of look around and go, oh, okay, I get it now. All these things that they've been preaching and talking about, it makes sense. And it's probably the primary reason why we achieved the goals that we set at the beginning of the year. You know what I mean? And hopefully that's going to be a driving force moving forward for sure. But Yeah, sorry, man. You know me. I can ramble and ramble and ramble.
Oh, rambling's good. Speaking of tangible, that ring that everyone got, all 36 of them, that was pretty tangible.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. And you know, I tell you the coolest thing about it is watching the guys, obviously the guys that were on the field and in those moments and the things that were created and the goals that were scored and blah, blah, blah. But the guys that weren't and what it meant to them, because we don't achieve anything without all of those guys. I mean, there was a point in the season, and we haven't told this, but there's a guy named Aaron Field came in, and we had some key injuries to the goalkeeper position, and we began to panic, as you remember, about what are we going to do with our only keeper if he goes down? Who's going in? And there was a kid that came in out of the classroom that had had some experience playing and went in every day and trained with us. And, man, the guys beat him up every day. And, I mean, long story short, this guy went through everything we did every day in blood, sweat, and tears just because he wanted to come be a part of it.
And didn't get to play.
And didn't get to play. Never stepped foot on the field. And you know what? To watch a kid like that get a ring and have something tangible to take away from it and know, I don't know that he'll ever know. I hope he does. I hope he listens to this because I've told him, and I know others have told him. But, man, having people like that changes your program forever. And hopefully set an example for what's really important to the rest of the guys. You know what I mean? And he just came in and did it for the love of the game and the love of our program. And it was cool to watch him get a ring. You know, I guess that's to me, that was probably bigger than some of the, you know, the captains and the guys that play all the time. So pretty cool, pretty tangible, that's for sure.
This last season,
the part that was cool, sorry to interrupt, was the guys that walked away from that and went, this is cool, but more.
More.
And I think that's pretty neat. You know what I mean? Is motivating them to want to get to a national tournament, to want to strive to win a national championship. And, man, when you start getting that momentum really begins to build, especially for the future. So that's cool.
That's one thing I've noticed about you is you're always pushing people to go one more step, one more level, more. And where does that come from? To like,
it's man, like, probably some dark demons, you know, way in the past. But it's a blessing and a curse in a sense that, you know, a lot of players don't get it, and it's probably my own kids get it worse than anybody. I've just been one that you can always do more. There's always more to be done, and sometimes I lose sight of what I just accomplished, maybe. Or what the team just accomplished, because I'm always looking forward. So that's what I mean by a curse sometimes. Sometimes I need to step back and relish in the fact that, hey, we just did something really, really big, you know? But I'm always, it's kind of, if I scored a goal in a game, why didn't I score 2? Why didn't I score 3? You know what I mean? And that's just been my mentality. It's like, okay, I did achieve that, what's next? And that's what's always motivated me and driven me. You know what I mean? I've just never been satisfied with just doing okay. I always wanted more. And I try to put that in the players, and sometimes I go about it the wrong way because, you know, in their minds, it's like, God, I can never do good enough. Right. It's never good enough. And I hate that because what some of them don't understand is deep down in my heart how proud I am of what they achieve, not just winning a championship, but what they achieve every day, the sacrifice that they put in. Because I've been there as a player. But the guys that, I mean, and I tell them from time to time, you got to be kind of half nuts to do what we do when you think about it. You know, we get a little bit of scholarship money, and we probably would save money by just going to school and not even playing, but they decide to get up every day at 6 a.m. and train and do things that nobody wants to do. You know what I mean? Very few people get up and say, man, this is fantastic, you know, going through all the pain and suffering and work for hopefully capturing a moment. But I tell you what, when that moment comes, it makes it all worthwhile. And I think that's what we all strive for. You know what I mean? But I think if I could say anything to those players, they don't even know how much I appreciate what they do because not everybody can do it. Not everybody's cut out to do what we do. And trust me, I never lose sight of that. It may seem like it because I'm always wanting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But man, they sacrifice a lot, and it's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, talking about how it was that 36 player matters in this season, everyone was buying in. One thing I noticed that was different from the last few seasons that I've seen you guys is when we would score a goal, like everyone got up to celebrate. Like it wasn't Jake that scored that goal. It was the whole team, even the guys on the bench, like everyone celebrated.
Yeah, again, nothing we've done special. It was pretty unique. I think we've got a lot of upperclassmen, but I also think it's a testament to just the culture of like that. I think more importantly, and Jake might correct me on this, but I think there came a point when you have players that have kind of grown up a little bit coming through the program, and Jake was at a point in his career, like I think he realized that those goals don't come from just him. You know what I mean? And so when those egos kind of drop a little bit and you start embracing the guys around you that work so hard to help you, then it gets reciprocated. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I had to watch Jordan work so hard to beat people and whip balls across, and, the defense to work so hard to not concede goals, and all of a sudden the momentum starts to build and people are feeding off of each other. And I think a lot of it just came from upperclassmen and leadership and understanding that it wasn't just them, and when you did that, then people are more apt to want to celebrate with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely noticed it. I definitely noticed that a lot more this season.
Well, we tried to change our training sessions a little bit. I don't know if the players felt this, probably not. And this came from assistant coaches giving me advice. You think you know it all, but so many times, especially when you have a big roster, you've got a lot of kids standing around watching in training. Mm-hmm. We tried to change that over the last couple of years and try to set sessions up where it really kept everybody involved. And so even if you were a redshirt and weren't playing, you hopefully were a part of the training session. Couldn't always get that done because sometimes you just can. But man, we really tried, and we're going to continue to try to include everybody in the training sessions and know that they're only one step away from being a starter. You know what I mean? And if you can keep that kind of edge, that steel sharpens steel, that they have a chance to get in, then I think they're going to feel more a part of it for sure.
Yeah, that's important. How have you gone about making things on the training grounds more fun?
Well, I don't know that all our players would say that it's fun, but we try to, and this has come from getting out of my old ways and allowing my assistant coaches to really come in and insert themselves, because I'm kind of an old stick in the mud sometimes, you know what I mean? Because I'm just all business all the time for the most part. And I've had to realize those shortcomings and bring some good assistants in. Several years back, I had Sean Slater that was a great assistant for me for 7 or 8 years. And then I was very fortunate to bring in Scott Parkinson, who is now coaching professionally in the women's level. And he brought some energy to our program that helped change things and set us on a course that hopefully we're still on, and really instilled some philosophies and things in me that have kind of helped. And then Mitch Sowerby, who was a player who was probably the most positive person I've ever been around in my life. And Mitch coming in as an assistant and bringing that positive atmosphere and laughing all the time and getting on with the players. And now, bringing in Mac Orr, who's another just super positive guy, never a negative out of him. And then now Jake Simpson, who was a player. Just all these, I've been very fortunate to just have great assistant coaches that, I allow them to develop as coaches and allow them to instill some of the things that they believe in and their personalities and characteristics that I think have allowed the training sessions to be competitive. And our guys thrive on that. It's fun, and we've created some things, we have competitions every day, and we're constantly taking photos of the winning teams. And now it's become a contest to see who can get their photo taken and be on social media every day, So when you create that kind of atmosphere, I think even when you're working hard, knowing that there's something at the end of it, you know what I mean? A reward.
Yeah.
Type of culture that they enjoy it. They enjoy it. I think if you ask most of the players, they enjoy it. Not all the time, because man, we got to work. But I think they enjoy our training sessions. I really do. They seem to.
Well, a perfect example of that, of people doing that outside of, once they graduate from Derek Larkin, just a few minutes ago.
RSU, you mean?
Yeah. Jake Simpson talking about how many views his podcast got compared to the other 2 episodes that are already out there. He's already like, I've got the most views. Like, it's already a competition. Like, they make everything a competition. Well, and it's great.
And I don't think that's anything I've done. I think maybe I've recruited those type of players. They've recruited anyway. I will say this: it is probably the most competitive group of guys I've ever been around in my entire life. It doesn't matter what it is. You can't walk in the locker room and they're not competing. It's FIFA or Call of Duty or what? Who knows, man? Who's the best singer on the team? Who's the best? I mean, we have training sessions where we play a game that's really not conducive to anything we're doing for the upcoming match that we're going to play. And I'm not so sure they don't play harder in that particular training session than they do in the game. They take more pride in winning a 6v6 competition. I mean, it's unbelievable. And it gets so competitive sometimes I got to shut it down. I mean, the guys are just, they're best of friends. But when it comes to competing, oh, my goodness, man. And I think back to what you said about Jake, I got more views. That's just those guys' personality, man. And it's my personality as well. I'm the same way. If you ask my kids at home who the most competitive person, I told them I wouldn't be doing them any favors if I let them win. So, growing up, I dominated, man. We played basketball and they were 4 years old and I'd be, dominating the court. I mean, I'm not going to let them win, and that's how my players are. So, we've kind of created a pretty competitive atmosphere. There's no doubt about it. It's a lot of fun.
It is. Let's talk about the mental aspect of how you've seen your players change over the last year or two, from, not to brag, but to some of the stuff I've come in and implemented. What's been the biggest change that you've seen in your players?
Well, probably the biggest thing is it's hard to put a label on it, but to me, it seems a sense of maturity. All right. Like, it seems like when you kind of get out of that, I'm a young student away from home, having fun, and my priorities are this, this, and this, your priorities begin to change a little bit. And I'll tell you, this thing that you brought to the table was one, obviously you're an inspiration to all. And I'm sure that on this podcast, if people know your background or your story, but what you brought to the table and your perseverance and the things that you've accomplished are infallible. I mean, it's meant so much to me, my family, our team, our program, what you've showed us that can be done through hard work and perseverance. It's unbelievable. You've taught yourself how to walk again. And we've all got to be a part of that. So not only have you brought, and let me back up, we've hired you to come in and do some things and some mental training and goal setting that's been fantastic for our guys in our program. And it's allowed them to take a step back from, that college life and really focus in on the things that are important. But on top of you doing all that kind of training, I guess where I'm going with this, you've also showed them, right? Talk about things being tangible. You showed them. So here it is. And it's difficult to get a 20-year-old to read a passage and go, oh, yeah, and that motivate them. Or watch a video and that motivate them. But when they see what you do personally and what you've been through, I hope that's changed them forever. You know what I mean? And I believe that it has. It's changed me. It's changed me and how I go about things and what's really important. And just when I think I'm mentally tough because every athlete wants to pride themselves on and coach and people in general, just how mentally tough we really are. And then someone like yourself comes along and shows us, man, you don't even know. You don't even know. And there's a whole nother level. Score 1 goal, I want to score 3. Well, I've been sitting at 0 goals, and I'm watching you bury hat trick after hat trick on the mental side of things. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I look at it. Like, I don't know that I can ever reach that, but I tell you what, I want some of it. I want some of what you got, because where you get it from, I have no idea, but I'll tell you what, I want some of that. And I think our players see that. And so when you have somebody that can not only bring it on an instructional level, but then on a personal level, I think it has been the missing link to our program that we've needed. We've been so close, and we've had great players and great teams. But Keith coming in and adding that spiritual touch and just that solid piece in our locker room, that when, coach is jumping all over me and I don't understand this and why is he getting on to me and so on and so forth, they had someone to turn to. And then for you to come in and bring what you've brought personally, it's everything we needed. Me personally, I think that's what put us over the top. That's what helped us win a championship, was what you brought to the table. And that's the mental aspect of it, the mental training, setting goals. And the more the guys were around you and we're doing this stuff, the more and more they believe in it.
Yeah.
As athletes, I mean, come on, you were an athlete too. Coaches have been preaching this from the beginning, right? Got to be mentally strong. Well, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, how can I put something tangible to that? And I think that's the component that you've really brought to the table. You visually see this, like, because you hear all this stuff and yeah. You talk about it, but do you really live it and believe it? And I think when people started to see it happening, they started to believe it. Start to believe, man, that changes your culture.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest part. Anyway, man,
And
I can go on forever about it.
I practice what I preach, I think, was the biggest thing. I hate hypocrisy. So I wasn't gonna get up there and talk, you need to do this, and me not be doing those things. So I made sure that if I'm gonna go up and, talk about setting goals, talk about, going the extra mile, talk about never giving up, I gotta do it myself. Or else I'm a hypocrite. Who's gonna listen? It's not gonna have any value. But if I do it and show them, and they can be like, and as I'm doing it, I'm saying, remember that one technique? Yeah, that's how I did this. Or remember that technique of just get 5 more steps in? That's how I made it across the entire soccer field. And I could draw lines from those techniques to tangible things. I think that's what helps.
There's no doubt. And just to piggyback on that, like what you're talking about is leading by example. I mean, to be a great leader, you got to lead by example. And God knows I've fallen short sometimes, not only in my personal life, but as a coach too. And it's something that when I surround myself around people like yourself, it reminds me of what I need to be doing. You know what I mean? As a person. And man, over the years, God knows I've forgotten so many things and made mistakes, like I said before. But as long as we're up front and trying to do things right and lead the right way. And I hope that the players, because I think that's the key component. We all talk about, we want great leaders, and everybody reads these leadership books and does all these kind of things. But when you're talking about 20-year-olds, being captains and leaders, man, it's hard to fault or take issue with anybody that's setting the example themselves. You know what I mean? If your most fit players on the team are out front everybody and they're your captains, kind of hard for somebody else to you know what I mean? Well, you need to be better at what you do. He's setting the example. And I think if I could give anything to those younger kids is yeah, you can be a vocal leader, but if you don't, like you said, if you don't practice what you preach, then no one's going to buy in. You know what I mean? And God knows you do that, Brandon. I'll tell you what.
Well, one of the good things about the whole thing was as I'm doing this stuff, I'd get lazy sometimes and be like, well, I can't get lazy. I can't let myself get lazy because I've got all these guys to answer to. Like, they would push me without even knowing it just because I was helping them. So they were helping me.
It's amazing. You feed on one another. You know what I mean? Feed on one another. And believe me, it took me a long time as a coach to realize that too, that I probably learned more from my players than I could ever teach them, to be honest. And they remind me of that each and every day, not just about soccer, but life in general. You know what I mean? And they've made me a better person for it. I believe that wholeheartedly. But I tell you what, does your audience know your background? I mean, have you?
I'm going to be putting out.
Or am I overstepping my bounds here?
No. I'm going to be putting out something about it. I haven't gone into depth about it yet. But we can talk about it now.
We don't have to. It's totally up to you, man.
It needs to get out at some point, so I just didn't know how to do it.
Well, I tell you what, I'll do this. I will share, and I'll keep it brief.
Okay.
You can come back later. In case you don't know, Brandon, former soccer player, was in a car accident that left him paralyzed from the waist down and has not been able to walk, been in a wheelchair, in a nutshell, right?
Yep.
How long did that accident take place?
2005, 15 years ago.
Okay, 15 years. And, man, I'm going to get my dates wrong because my memory as I'm getting old, as you can see, I'm losing a little bit here. But several years ago, you started, you've started since day one. I'm going to walk again. I mean, it's simple as that. But you brought it to our attention, and you were able to. I remember the first time you came in and you wanted to be a guest speaker and talk about mental toughness. I thought, okay, all right, we'll give it a go. But then when you told me you wanted to get up and show the guys and girls, and you wanted to challenge yourself to walk on our field, and the day you did that, I think it changed lives forever. So in a nutshell, we're sitting here talking about athletes and mental training. Let me tell you something, Brandon, you are the epitome of mental toughness, and watching you do this and what you've overcome in the last 15 years, I can't even imagine, but it's an inspiration to all. I'll tell you that. It's changed my life, like I said before. I guarantee you.
See, well, I feed off of that. You guys, me being able to inspire you inspires me in return. So. Well,
that's good, man. We need each other.
Yeah.
And I believe that, man. God puts people in your lives for a reason. You know what I mean? And I tell you what, it's changed our program, and it's just been really neat too, because I know you're trying to develop some things and work on some things, and how you can help our athletes, and to watch you grow through that, through trial and error and different things, and what works with athletes and leading by example and all these kind of things. And it's got to be pretty cool for you to see some intangibles, not only you personally, in your own challenges and trying to walk and all those things, but watching these guys achieve, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What they did this year, and know that you were a huge instrumental part of that, man, that's got to feel pretty good.
Gives me goosebumps just thinking about it.
You got the ring to prove it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And
really cool deal.
I'm gonna add that about my whole story. The hardest thing about not being able to walk has been not being able to play soccer. I can't tell you how many years it took for me to drive by a soccer field and not just start bawling because I couldn't play. And
I can't even imagine.
And I know I shared that with the team, and I know, like, Jake has told me personally, he's like, that helped me so much. Just like when I'd go and put on my cleats, and when I didn't want to practice and didn't want to have those sore legs and didn't want to run, I just remember Brandon told me to give anything to be here right now. What am I complaining about? So for me to finally find a way to get back into soccer without playing and thrive by playing through the guys, like it's been life-changing for me. I mean, it's allowed me to do what I love again.
That makes me so happy to hear that. I get a little emotional thinking about it because it has been really, really special. Even I probably shouldn't throw Jake under the bus, I'll let you talk about it. It meant so much to him. He's even got a little memento on his legs. Did he share that in his?
Yeah, we talked about that. My crutches have the word strength and honor on them, and he got those tattooed to his calves in my honor. So.
I mean, if that doesn't tell you right there how you've inspired somebody, man, nothing else will. I mean, he got it permanently tattooed on him, and I think that's a true testament to what you've done and how you've changed lives. And we're going to keep changing lives, right?
Yes, together. Yep.
We're just getting started, man.
Yep.
And that's a pretty cool deal. The stuff you've implemented in talking about mental training and watching you go through these things and then share with our players, it really has been instrumental. And I hope the players are smart enough and savvy enough to realize what it's meant. You know what I mean? It's like you said, it's really easy for all of us as humans to get caught up in our daily grind, you know, and things aren't going right and not feeling right, or I'm been treated unfair, or things like that. And then you have to take a step back and things like what you're talking about, the ability to even go out and just kick a soccer ball. Not even talking about playing in a big game, just the ability to go out and kick a ball, just to run around the field, you know, and do that again. And we definitely take those things for granted. And sometimes, you know, I'm sure you do realize, but it just, you know, when you're around us all the time, it does put things in perspective for people. And it makes you do a little bit of life check, you know, a little soul searching about what's really important. And kind of goes back to the savoring those moments we talk about and how important those little moments are. And I'm not talking about winning games, just that moment in the game. I mean, even when you look down the bench and you sub a guy in who has not played in 4 games, and the look on his face that almost out of panic, I don't know, or excitement, or they even run past me before they go into the game because they forget to get instructions from me. You know what I mean? Like, that's a moment for them. And even in their personal lives, the moments that come across that you hear about. And anyway, we tend to take things for granted. And I think it's great to put things in perspective for sure.
Cool. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. Coach Larkin, thank you so much for being a part of this. It's been great talking to you and delving deeper into your mind a little bit and learning about you.
The method to the madness. Well, Brandon, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you, what you've done for me, what you've done for the program, and what you're doing now, man. I think this is great, getting information out to people and the ability to talk about how important the mental side of the game really is, both on a personal level and an athletic level. So, and I just appreciate you. Love you, man, and take care of yourself, all right?
All right. Love you, Coach.
Yeah, we'll talk soon. Love you too. See ya.
Bye.